My favorite part about the city is its proximity to all kinds of amenities and culture, like museums and sports teams and other recreational opportunities.
Whatever I want to do, I can walk to it, jump on local public transportation, and it's wholly accessible.
My least favorite part about this city to date is basically the expansiveness of the city. It's a pretty large city. So to get from one part of the city to another part does take time.
Of course, you live in a smaller apartment than you would do if you live in a house in the suburbs.
It's interesting. I think there are two places in transportation and in education. Both of those systems have had trouble in recent years. The metro system is aging, and they're not really addressing those concerns in a fast enough and sufficient enough way. It's interesting because Washington doesn't have they can only do so much because Congress is actually involved in the running of their local affairs as well in terms of budget. So there are some roadblocks that they hit because they're not really allowed to self-rule the way other cities are.
The city is growing and they can't build roads fast enough. They don't build the houses fast enough. So there are always kind of crammed areas where you get congestions in the traffic.
Lack of sanitation in certain areas, I think, is another major problem that they face due to the overcrowding. And then just the general employment, the amount of employment available and jobs available in the city is quite a big challenge for them.
To date, I think the major problem that we've had since actually June of this year is the media exposed a Gen X chemical in our water. So it's caused quite a few issues for everybody, concerned about cancer if you're drinking the water, you don't want to cook in it.
In theory, DC is set up to be a great public transportation city. The metro is laid out in a very efficient way, and you can get to most places you need to go to, and the bus system can fill in the gaps. Because of mismanagement, I think that I have shied away from actually taking advantage of the public transportation. So typically I drive.
I live in the center and I work in the center, so I go around by bicycle. So I bike around a lot. So that's actually the easiest way to get around. Public transportation is fairly good. I take the bus. Doesn't take long. We have the subway as well. So it's not that's not a big problem. And on occasion I take the car, but that's very rare actually. That's how we get around.
From where I live today, to food and toiletries, it's really a 5-minute drive for us. It's really right down the street. The section of the city that I live in is growing. It's fairly new, so we have your typical grocery stores, your Walmarts, your Lowe's. So anything like that, a fairly quick ride.
It has a pretty mild climate. The two things I would say is that in the winter, it doesn't snow often, but when it does snow, because it doesn't snow often, people do not know how to respond to snowy roads. So that sort of impacts life in a huge way when it does snow. And in the summers are really humid. So I think you really kind of see outdoor activity kind of come to a crawl in the middle of the summer when it's 100 degrees and really humid.
The climate, we do get a little cold in the winter. It's not so bad. I don't mind snow. I kind of like the 4 seasons. So I have no complaints about the weather in Chicago, although, a lot of people like to talk about that, but it's not so bad at all. A couple months of the year, you just have to put on a heavy coat.
We live nearby a big park that goes, I would say, straight from the center all the way out to the islands outside. So we're just on the rim or the border of that park. So you have huge lawns, and you have even forests you can walk around in.
We've got some incredible parks. We've got Lincoln Park, that's a huge park, like you would. I mean, it's enormous. We got the world's largest free zoo inside Lincoln Park, and it's got everything: polar bears, lions, tigers. It's kind of cool. You know, people pay a lot of money to go. We got it free right in Lincoln Park.
I guess living in South Africa has number one, as a relative safety issue. It's not a safe country at a crime rate level, but it's like any major city and any major town, is you tend to avoid places that are more known for criminal activity. And so in areas where I think the majority of the people stay and are it's called a middle to upper class areas, are generally safe. You just wouldn't go into the city centers without being at least cautious of your surroundings.
Yes, I mean, when I first moved to Washington, I don't know that I could really say that, but in the last 25 years, they've done a lot of work to kind of clean up the city. It's a good thing and a bad thing. I think that one of the ways that they were able to do that is they redeveloped a lot of areas that were lower income areas, and now they're squeezing out lower income folks for brand new condos and young folks who work for startups and the government and the other thing are kind of moving into these areas. So it's sort of a bittersweet success story, I think.
Parents are very engaged in the school community, so we get to know each other through our kids and through the school. They're engaged in on the board of the house where we live, so there are a lot of events around that. And the city, of course, they have different festivals and events actually in the park where we live. So
welcome to the Midwest. We are super friendly. We are super accessible. We do know our neighbors. I know their names. I know their children. They know my children. All summer long and into the fall, street festivals, music. They block off streets. You can parade around, grab a beer, drink in the street, dance to some music, grab some food. Very friendly town.